I'm Clara and I love ships and naval history. Today we'll be talking about a French ship called L'Orient. She was that one ship which blew up in the Battle of the Nile. But what was her story? Let's honor her by this small biography. So, her story began in 1780s when French Navy standardized construction of their ships of the line into three categories: 74 guns and 80 guns double-deckers and 120 guns triple-deckers. The idea of these majestic 120 guns warships was brought to life in an ocean-class ships of the line. The one we will be talking about today began her service in 1791 under the name Dauphine Royal, and her whole service was dictated by chaotic times of French Revolution and wars connected to it. Dauphine Royal was, thanks to her formidable guns, assumed to be the best warship in the world. Thanks to those assumptions, the ocean-class ships were a major concern for France's biggest enemy, the Royal Navy. Most heavily armed British ships had only 100 guns and were smaller than their French challengers. In 1793, Royal Navy captured one of the ships from this class and examined it, and they realized that these French triple-deckers might be formidable in guns, but were hardly maneuverable and really slow. So they did not adapt their design for their own ships. But let's go back to our Dauphine Royal. With change of the political system went the fact that her name was outdated. So she was renamed on Sans Culotte in 1792. That means that she held the name Dauphine Royal for just 1 year. Well, in France of that time, regimes were changing really quickly. Under the name Sans Culotte and as a flagship of Admiral Martin, she fought her first battle, Battle of Genoa, which took place on March 14th of 1795. In this battle, French fleet faced combined British and Neapolitan forces. Sans Culotte engaged two 74-gun ships of Royal Navy, HMS Egmont and HMS Bedford, but won over none. I guess they were faster than she was. At night, she lost contact with other ships and unknowingly sailed from the battlefield. French Navy lost the battle and two ships with it. She sailed back to port and was renamed again, and it was again due to political consequences. But they finally gave her a name that would be neutral. She became L'Orient, which means east in French. Well, cardinal directions aren't changing with regimes. I hope. In 1798, she was appointed as a flagship of Toulon's fleet under the flag of Admiral Bourrier. In the same year, her fleet got an important mission to support Napoleon's expedition to Egypt. Ships with soldiers on board were unarmed, so they needed protection of L'Orient and another 12 ships of the line and 4 frigates of Toulon's fleet. Napoleon's impressive fleet of over 300 ships departed from France on May 20th, 1798, and on the 9th of June they arrived at Malta and captured the island within 3 days. Napoleon needed to somehow finance his expedition, so, he used the whole treasure of the Order of St. John for it. The treasure was stored on the ship who the Napoleon was sailing on and who was probably the most important from all in the fleet, the L'Orient. The Mediterranean fleet of Royal Navy found pretty quickly about the disappearance of Toulon's fleet. Well, I guess they didn't really blockade this port too well when they allowed French fleet to escape. Who knows? But now they sent a squadron under the flag of Rear Admiral Horatio Nelson to chase the French. Sadly for Nelson and thankfully for Napoleon, British squadron didn't have any frigates, so they were sailing all around East Mediterranean in search of the Napoleon's fleet but found nothing. Once they met so closely that on board of French vessels could hear the British signal guns, but it was in fog and at night, so the Nelson squadron didn't realize that a fleet of just 300 French ships was sailing very closely to them. And the French? Well, they didn't want to engage with the British ships. L'Orient's fleet must first and foremost protect Napoleon's army, not engaging with enemy squadrons just for fun. On the 1st of July, 1798, whole French fleet anchored in Alexandria, After landing the troops, Admiral Bruyer requested to Napoleon that it would be safest option for Toulon's fleet to sail on the island of Corfu and anchored there. Napoleon, who didn't have any experience with navy but wanted to control it, obviously, didn't really listen to Bruyer and ordered him to anchor in the bay near the city called Aboukir. The evening of 1st of August was slowly approaching, and Admiral Bruyer was anxiously waiting if the Nelson squadron would finally come. Yes, it really took Nelson more than a month to find that cursed French fleet, but that evening he finally did it. Bruyer anchored his fleet into a strong defensive line with his flagship, or de L'Orient, in the middle. No one in Toulon's fleet could guess that Nelson would attack at night. Night attacks just weren't proper at that time. But the British squadron just really wanted to defeat the French fleet. After such a long chase, it's quite understandable to me. They found that the French position is not as strong as Bruyer thought and surrounded the first half of his fleet with their own ships. There were 13 74-gun ships. Being the strongest ship in the fleet, L'Orient found herself attacked by multiple ships, most notably by HMS Bellerophon, to which Napoleon would surround 17 years later. But now she was changed into a floating wreck by mighty guns of L'Orient. Captain Casabianca, Admiral Bruyer, and their crew were bravely defending L'Orient until she caught fire, and that was a problem. Fire on the wooden warship could pretty easily get into the magazines where the gunpowder was stored, and then, well, the ship will simply blew up. And L'Orient met this fate. The blow was so mighty that it was heard in Alexandria, and the battle stopped for a quarter of an hour. Bruyer and Casabianca died with L'Orient, so Napoleon could blame them for losing the battle, since they couldn't defend themselves. With the majestic blow of the L'Orient also died Napoleon's hopes on conquering Egypt, and was born one of the most decisive naval victories in British history. Burning L'Orient became a symbol of the Battle of the Nile, so one of the Nelson's captains came up with a brilliant idea to make a coffin from the mast of sunken L'Orient and give it to Nelson. Nelson liked that very original gift, and believe or not, he's actually buried in that coffin. And do you remember that treasure from Malta, which was on board L'Orient? Well, it sank with the ship and still lies on the bottom of the Aboukir Bay. Egyptians have been monitoring the bay quite well, so I wouldn't try to salvage it without their permission. There have been a poem which took place on board the L'Orient. It tells a story of Captain Casabianca and his young son, who also have been on board L'Orient during the Battle of the Nile, and neither one of them survived. Though the poem have been rather romantical and probably far from truth, it was still great. The poem has been called Casabianca, some of you definitely knows it, and it's by Felicia Hemans. Well, that is probably all about L'Orient. All sources I used will be linked down below, so if you want to know more about her, you can check them out. I hope I'll see you next time with biography of another ship. Bye!